All right, UTSA Army, as we move to Saturday's action, we've got the Roadrunners, meet, 2-point road favorites here, 56 the total. And certainly the thing that stands out from a spot perspective is what's left in the tank for UTSA. I mean, that was just a physical, emotional roller coaster ride of a football game against I think what you could consider an in-state rival. Do they play every year, Houston, UTSA? No, but that's a nice little rivalry developing considering Houston's a very solid program and UTSA has become a program worthy of respect the last couple of years. And it was just an incredible game. It ends up going to the third overtime, which now in college football is just an exchange of 2-point conversion attempts. And that's how that game was decided. And Houston made their 2-point try and UTSA did not get their first 2-point try, and that was the difference in the end for UTSA falling just short in a heartbreaker against Houston last week. So what has that game taken out of them now as they have to go on the road now all the way pretty much to the East Coast here against to take on this Army at West Point now. Big travel spot here, early game as well, noon Eastern on Saturday. Certainly it's not a UTSA spot. There's no question about that. This is a tricky, worrisome spot, potentially a bet against spot. But here's the problem with Army, and it's the same issue I have every single year with Army. It's that when push comes to shove, is this team going to be able to get some stops for me, on the defensive side of the football? I mean, we've seen Army, it seems like last year, it seems like the year before, every time they've gone up against a capable offensive team, they've had their problems. And, Coastal Carolina last week, the 38-28 loss for Army, that was a Coastal Carolina team that they did have Grayson McCall, their quarterback, returning. They had some O-line replacing to do. They had new faces on the O-line, a few new faces along the skill position groups at running back and wide receiver. And yet there was Coastal Carolina pretty much doing whatever they wanted offensively against Army. And that's the concern here because, look, UTSA's got a solid offense, and they showed it against Houston. Houston's got a great defense. UTSA's offense was succeeding and moving the ball and having success. Frank Harris and that offense moved the ball against a great defense. They're not facing a great defense here, facing this Army team. So I'm actually leaning to points in this game because I could see the UTSA defense, look, after last week, played their hearts out, could see them maybe a little bit gas tank on empty physically, having to roar back and play another strong defensive game, and you got to prepare for the triple option. Coming off that kind of just an exhausting, taxing game against Houston, that may not be easy. So I'm not looking at a side. I mean, certainly if you look at it from a spot perspective, you got to lean Army, but I don't trust this defensive Army to get stops when they need to. And that continues to be the issue I find when they play above average teams and above average offenses. So I can't take UTSA in this spot. But the Army matchup concerns with their defense are probably going to keep me off Army and actually make me look toward the over in this game instead. What do you think here, CMAC, UTSA Army?
Yeah, they're raising, kind of these totals. Obviously, they're playing UTSA, like Seamus just put in there. That last week they couldn't keep it under. This Army defense they got gashed. And that Coastal team, like you talked about, it was a newer defense, but on offense, obviously they had McCall, and he was efficient, 12 for 17, 3 touchdowns, 174. But they ran all over Army, and that's not a good sign for them here. But I think they'll be able to move it against UTSA. Like you talked about, just a crazy game back and forth. Man, I thought they could have won it there at home. It was difficult. I think they'll be able to run it here with Harris. They'll have an easy time against Army. But you talked about early game. I think the total is kind of right there. I was thinking like it would be 55 to 57. We got right here at 56. So I still might get over. This is a game I'm going to watch and see. I think there's a little bit with Army. I think if you were getting over a field goal, I'd feel better with taking them. So this one's a good old-fashioned watch for me early.
Yeah, it was Reese White and C.J. Beasley. They just ran amok for Coastal Carolina against this Army team last week. They combined for over 200 rushing yards. So that run D. And look, UTSA is still a run-first offense. They still want to. They want to be the throwing the football based off the run. That's what they want to do. So this should be a setup for offensive success here for the Roadrunners. But I'm worried about all
Harris
the snaps.
made some great throws though in that game though. I mean, he could throw it like that, obviously he's very talented.
Yep.
But I thought he played great.